Frack on. Welcome to the episode of Frack The Canon. Today I am joined by two new panelists. I am joined by Anya. Hi, Anya. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
You want to introduce yourself a little bit? Say something about yourself before we start the show.
Sure. I'm Anya. I am coming to you from the Yukon, Canada, way far up north, right next door to Alaska. But I actually met you, René, doing some work in California. So I was in California for about 8, maybe 10 years. I don't even keep track anymore. I'm a performing artist and a teaching artist. So I mainly teach theater now, but I have a burlesque company and we do burlesque all over the Yukon and Alaska, sometimes get down to Seattle. But yeah, I am just so excited to be here and talk about this amazing show.
That's awesome. Great, cool. And then we're going to pass it over to Masha. That's how I know you guys. Masha, how are you doing?
Yeah, I know my Zoom name is different. I'm Masha. I met René 2 years ago at our friend Kenny's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just been following each other online, I suppose, ever since. But I'm really excited that we're talking about Selling Sunset today.
Well, thank you for getting us started. So we're talking about Selling Sunset. Like this show, mostly we talk about comic book movies, comic book shows. Like every now and then we'll talk about a little of the artsy stuff because my friend and I went to film school. Take a shot. So this is so completely off of our normal niche. So what do you guys like about Selling Sunset? Why do you like it so much?
I mean, I think for me, my mother and I, like growing up, that's kind of how we bonded, was by watching like really like Housewives of Orange County and just like reality TV shows that were, considered guilty pleasures. But I think what hooked me with Selling Sunset was like, it started off as me being like, oh, this is going to be another like reality show about like beautiful, rich people. But what I ended up staying for was the fact that the majority of the characters, aside from Christine, seem like really genuine, like caring, talented, like very smart, like, people who, put their family first and who are, going through lots of like roller coaster life changes, and they're like navigating them pretty well, like with the support from their friends. And surprisingly, like I kind of love the bosses. I kind of love the two dudes who run this place. Like at first I was like, oh, two guys like hiring a bunch of like pretty women to be in their realty office, but they actually like take really good care of their employees and seem to actually care. So like I stayed because there was actually some humanity there, and I was like, this is awesome. And then of course Christine, just drama.
We will come back to Christine. Masha,
I'm just staying so I can figure out the difference between Jason and Brett, and I almost have an inkling. One of them has a different voice. I forget which one. One of them has apparently there's this thing with twins, that there's a peach twin and there's a pear twin. Some faces are longer and some are wider. I don't know who's who though. But I love shows like on HGTV about houses and architecture, and unfortunately I think this season didn't have as much about the houses. It was more about the drama, but I like that as a vehicle, I suppose, for the drama to unfold. And every now and then there's some substance, or some substance with like the material of the houses, or some cameo from some celebrity. Like this season we had Sumu from the new Marvel movie. So I love the boss bitch, boss babe kind of vibe and the camaraderie there. So it's exciting to watch. Pretty people do petty things.
No, I will say that like every woman in that show is super strong. Even the one I don't like, I'm like, all right, give her credit. That woman is still strong, a strong woman. Mm-hmm. I just like, for me, it was like I had a friend who was in real estate. I'm like, okay, I'll start watching this. I thought it was gonna be real estate, like this is what you need to do, something like that. But I'm like, no, just drama. And I get involved, and then I'm like, I remember the first season, I'm like, I hate Christine.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love Jay Christine. I'm like, everyone is so nice. Like, and it's funny thing too, like you said, Anya, like the relationships like switching, because Mary and Christine were so close, and then she became friends with Chriselle. And oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about this like this, but I love this show. And then like this final season we just saw, it was just like the whole office against Christine. I'm like this is insane. I'm like, I need to do an episode about this for my show. I'm glad you signed up to do it. I just like, oh my God. What are your favorite characters? What are your favorite moments from the show? We'll start with you, Masha.
I think it changes throughout the season for me who's my favorite or who I'm rooting for. There's certain characters who cannot do no wrong, like Maya, for example. And then, I mean, there's certain portrayals of characters that I think the producers have a heavy hand in changing our own audience perspective of like what might happen in reality. Chriselle is also a very sympathetic character. Christine obviously is playing the villain. There's this recent like TikTok trend, I think, from the People's Choice Awards where she's like, "Am I the villain? Yeah, I think I'm the villain." And it's just like she knows what she's doing. She's definitely playing it up for the camera. Other times I'm like, just pick a side, either be the bitch or play the victim. Just choose one. You can't do both at the same time. So that kind of back and forth isn't, I don't love it in terms of like reminding me of a narcissistic kind of personality that's really not healthy to be around. But I suppose it's nice to see that other people also recognize that, like, you know, unhealthy behavior and like to not stand up for it. So I really like appreciated how Mary, for example, stood up for herself, which she wasn't doing so much in the first two seasons with Christine, and just kind of letting her walk over her. And she's kind of, you know, gotten out of that rut.
That's right. Yeah, I'll come back to the Christine like double like victim badass. Anya, what about you?
Yeah, I definitely like Chriselle is just my girl. I love her so much. And just like her story of, you know, her past, her history, like coming from homelessness and now is this like realtor who in this last season was able to buy her own home. And it's just like this beautiful, like I've been homeless for a very short amount of time. It's nothing near what she's experienced, but just like, man, I can't imagine like how that must feel to come from that and to be able to buy your own, not just like a home, but like a very nice home in LA. Like that's just amazing. But I really liked from this new season, Vanessa.
I like Vanessa too.
Yes, I was like, at first I was like, Vanessa, why are you trying to like so hard to get Christine? Like it's not going to happen. But there's something about Vanessa where I'm just like, and her story too, with like losing her sister. And I can understand why Vanessa is just like really trying to get Christine to just open up and be vulnerable and like stop playing around for the camera. Like I'm like, yes, Vanessa, like you're just, oh, you're gonna get it, girl, someday.
Yep. I like Vanessa. Like I out of like I like how they keep bringing in new people into the office. Like out of the newer ones, I'll put Amanda. Like I love Amanda. Like that woman's story. I don't know why, but I love that she's like, all right, I'm raising my kids by myself. Frack the dad. I'm like, just like I'll do it myself. And the fact that she's like I was living all these like I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, like scrubbing people's toilets. I'm like, and now she's coming back. I'm like, that's pretty dope. That's pretty cool about her. I really found that really. I don't know, just really like that's really sexy. I don't know.
Yeah,
And I think
the literal glow up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But yeah, I love Vanessa because I was like you too, and you know, I'm like she's Mexican. I'm like, are we always like trying to get people and other people's like you know, like as the Mexican thing? But like, but you said she's genuinely trying to like make things better. But I'm like she's trying, but the other people are trying to. But at the end of the day, Christine, from what we've seen so far, she's like, nah, I'm good. Like, she even said this too. Nah, I'm good. Like that final scene.
She has to want to change herself.
Yeah.
And I commend Vanessa for beating a dead horse to the ground. But I also think that maybe she was kind of used this season as like an audience stand-in of like rehashing the last couple of seasons with Christine and just like, why is this lady such a B word all the time? And then Vanessa would just try really hard, I think harder than she deserved necessarily, but it was also one of the few people I think who tried to befriend Vanessa was Christine. Everyone else is like busy with their own stuff going on, or their wedding, or their husbands, or their kids, or something. And I think for Vanessa, just she saddled up with Christine and tried to give back in that way.
mean, I personally think Christine manipulated that and did that on purpose. Like that was my first impression. Like as soon as the scene opened with like, it's Vanessa's first day and she hasn't met anyone yet, and you see her sitting down with Christine, I'm like, no, because that's exact. Christine is of course going to get her on her side and be like, oh, these girls are awful to me, I'm such a victim. And then of course Vanessa, being just like a pure-hearted amazing person, is going to be like, oh, like how can I help you, like I want to, you know, be there. And like what I did appreciate about Vanessa though is, you know, she is like a mature, wise person who gave everyone, you know, their own opportunity to be who they are with her. Like she didn't take what Christine said, although Christine wanted her to, and you know, like automatically take on Christine's point of view. She really, like Vanessa, let everyone kind of show her who they were. And I'm like, okay, thank you, Vanessa. Like that is a mature person who has like had dynamics before with people. Like I appreciate that.
I want to go back to that what we said, Anya, because like so everyone who was showing where they were. I like how this season the story was like, I guess Vanessa being the new girl and trying to figure out what side she's on, and she like you guys were saying, she's trying to mend bridges. But as the season went on, you keep finding out that Christine's story, the engagement story, kept like falling apart. I'm like, this woman is insane. Like I hope this is a written show. At the end we'll find out like this was all written. None of this real. Because if this is real, this is a lot about humanity. I'm like my humanity book. I'm like that final scene where Mary and Christine are going at it. I'm like, they're calling you out on it, but you're so adamant about like just let it go, woman. Like just like I'm like, oh my god. And it goes back to what Masha was saying about her playing the victim and being the badass B. I'm like, you want to touch on that more, Masha?
Well, what really I always notice with Christine is that someone will call her out on her bullshit, and she won't acknowledge that she has hurt that person or that they are hurt. She will give reasons or excuse her behavior as to like, you know, I've suffered this or that, which is valid. Both things can exist at the same time, but it's a very like I don't know, I've seen it before, narcissistic kind of response of like, yeah, but I do these things because I've had such a difficult life, and then they just move, and then it's just about them again. It moves past the initial issue that was brought up. So that's she hasn't been learning her lesson there. She keeps hurting people. She keeps bringing up the same drama. She keeps changing her story about that same drama, which is kind of sad because, girl, you're wifed up and you have a baby and everything. Why do you care about this ex-boyfriend from 5-6 years ago that supposedly got engaged with you, but also no one can corroborate that, and it's just falling apart at the seams.
Like for me, one of the red flags when you brought up what was her name? Not Danica. Danica, someone else.
Emma?
No, the lady with the D.
Davina?
Yes, Davina. She brought in Davina. I'm like, I wasn't even in the group then. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. Plus, like, she's really trying to have Davina stay on her side, and it's like at Davina's own, you know, loss, or what's the word there, where, you know, she would lose credibility just to be on her side and have her back. That's a phrase that Christine keeps saying, that like, but just because you're friends with someone doesn't mean that you're automatically going to blindly follow them to the end of the earth. Right. You should have more respect for your friends as well, that they would call you out, and they would maybe, you know, correct your story if you admittedly maybe even had the facts wrong. That can happen. That's okay. Just admit that you were wrong. But Christine can never admit that she was wrong.
Anya?
That's for me like one of the human qualities that I see in Christine, is that I don't know what her past trauma is, but just knowing that like I am healing from past trauma, and like lots of my friends are, you know, healing from past trauma. It seems like Christine has never had a healthy friendship, so she doesn't know what that entails, and she kind of associates friendship with like loyalty, and she thinks loyalty means you back me up no matter what. That's not what friendship is, and I don't think Christine understands that, because for whatever reason, I don't think she's ever had the opportunity to have a healthy relationship with a person that's platonic and not romantic. And that's sad. And like, that's where like Vanessa, I'm just like, oh, Vanessa, her bleeding heart. Like, I understand why she's trying to help Christine, but you're right, Masha. Like, Christine's not going to change unless she wants to. And I think Christine understands Hollywood. And I think she understands that like she can play the villain and it will get her as much attention and, you know, as anything else. So she's willing to just do it. That's what I think.
Yeah. I think that she's going to have a spin-off show or something. Selling Christine, and you know, I'm sure Netflix would pick that up, and then she can have a bunch of new minions that she can boss around and claim loyalty from.
I would probably watch that show.
Yeah.
All right, so Masha, there were things before we started recording. You brought up you want to talk about Maya's motherhood, pregnancy. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I read online or on her Instagram that we learned on the show that Maya was pregnant with her third child, and unfortunately she had a stillbirth at 38 weeks, which is really, really awful and sad. And I think there's been a lot of rumors online, which I'll mention with like regards to people's opinions or conspiracy theories about, let's say, Christine's pregnancy and how it was portrayed on the show. And I appreciate certain forums online that have really shut that down and policed those kind of conversations, because they've gotten really out of hand, and to the point where like I know Christine has even acknowledged them like on her social media that it's like really hurtful, which the one thing I will definitely completely 1,000,000% sympathize with her about, if I'm going to be on her side for anything, it's just that, you know, being a mom is hard enough as is, I imagine, in Hollywood with the expectations there and the kind of lifestyles that they have, it's even more. And I think the producers have a hand, unfortunately, to play in that with how they edited the show and that they made it look like, and Christine has also said this in social media or in tabloids, that it was edited out of order, where it looked like she was doing yoga 2 weeks after she gave birth, or it looked like she was in 6-inch heels 2 or 3 weeks after she gave apparently a traumatic birth. Whether or not someone believes that, C-section or natural, whatever, the easiest birth possible could have happened, like that's just not how the body works. And that's unfortunate that I think the production either was negligent in portraying that, or they did that on purpose. Either way, I think that's a ethical quandary that I have with the show. And I think earlier, René, you also was talking about how it could be scripted, and I read that, to jump around several topics, I read that the executive producer, I think Adam DeVilo, he did The Hills, 10, 15, whenever years ago, and it came out many years later that was very heavily scripted. So I would not be surprised if they were force-feeding certain storylines. Like, I bet the Christine and Emma ex-boyfriend thing was unnecessarily brought up, like it was too much, maybe at the behest of the production, and maybe Vanessa had some like poked and prodded, like, topics to bring up, and I'm sure we're gonna see more of that in the next season. But to go back to it's just like, it's very sad of what happened with Maya's pregnancy, and it's also unfortunate the rumor mills that were spreading around Christine's.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird too, because like it's a reality show, right? So I'm like, well, this is what really happened, because that's what they're telling us too. Like, and to go back to, didn't they mention that? Did Vina say that? Because I rewatched the episode last week. I binge watched it again yesterday. Didn't Davina say that you just had a baby and you're doing yoga or whatever?
Yeah, I think they just pasted that audio on top of something else, or they like there was one thing where she was we were looking at her back, and so we couldn't see her front, but apparently that actual scene or that day she was pregnant, or she was like 8.5 months or something pregnant, and so you just can't see that she's actually doing yoga pregnant, which apparently she was exercising this whole time, and I'm sure she's been an active person for a while. But there were rumors that she faked her whole pregnancy and that she was wearing a moon bump the whole time, which is a very serious accusation. And there was she even brought up a couple of years ago when Mary was talking to her about wanting to have kids one day with Romain, but he wasn't ready. And Christina was the one that brought up, well, surrogacy is an option. So I think that if she wanted to not carry to term a baby herself, she would have been the flag bearer of surrogacy, and I don't think she would have necessarily had shame about it, which I really appreciate that a lot of the ladies are really honest about, like, their boob jobs or their plastic surgery, or you know, what they do to maintain their lifestyle, their extensions, whatever it is. So that I think is a lovely message from the show, that just, you know, you shouldn't be ashamed of these body modifications that people do that are so normal also in their lifestyle.
Anya, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like, damn. Yeah, like, I just agree with you, Masha, on just in general, like, what's the point of like starting some shitty rumors about someone's pregnancy, as shitty as Christine may be, and as much as she may start bullshit.
I would never
herself,
hope that on my worst enemy.
Exactly. Like, that's not okay. Like, that's just absolutely not okay. And everybody is different. I'm pregnant right now. I'm 9 weeks pregnant.
Oh my
and
gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. And like, what I'm learning is that everybody is different. Like, I have friends that did have a pregnancy that would, you know, look on the outside like what Christine's looked like to the audience. Like, for whatever reason, their bodies were just, they just are in shape and they're just fit and they just like live their life and have their baby, and then bada bing bada boom, they're back at it. And then I know other people who have postpartum depression and who, you know, go through a lot of different body changes. Like, everyone's different. So why the hell would you comment on something that you know nothing about, like, just to hurt someone, even someone like Christine? That's just not, it's not cool.
And that's why I'm not commenting on this at all, because I have no idea what's happening. So I'm gonna move on to another topic that again we talked about before. Pre-wrote red flag Robert. They brought that up again. Masha, you want to start us off on that topic again?
You know, I brought it up and you guys forgot about him, right? Because he was just a blip in the show for one scene. And everyone would have forgotten about him if that was it. But he decided to go running his mouth in the tabloids and badmouth Chrishell, and now everyone knows his last name, his job, his how many dogs and cars, and who his current girlfriend is. It's just ridiculous. I have not given the time of day to Us Weekly, and I won't, but apparently he yeah, like I said, badmouthed Chrishell and accused her of dating Jason at the time, which, if people who, if you saw the season 5 trailer, or you've been following them online, you'll know that Jason and Chrishell are now officially together. They were probably like hanging out, maybe friends with benefits, towards the very end of the show. But I believe what he's alluding to is that she was dating him when she was supposedly agreeing to this group sort of date or meeting of this guy Robert, who, here or there, you can date multiple people. It's 2021. Second, it was just like a blind date situation where, you know, here, Heather or Tariq, here's my friend Robert. You know, if you guys get along, cool, then you can get to know each other after this initial hangout. Fantastic. But he blew that already, so he had no chance already. So he's just been like tail between his legs, you know, upset about his portrayal, probably because he didn't behave himself very well, and he won't take advantage, or he won't, you know, take accountability for that. I remember from the scene, I had to read it, watch it again, but he wouldn't stand up when Chrishell needed to get out of her seat, and then like forcing her to like shimmy, you know, in her swimsuit in front of him to get through, which he easily could have just gotten up, which is anyway the chivalrous thing to do, you know, platonic or not, right? And then another part of that evening or day on the boat was he picked her up just to take her away to have a conversation with her, as if he is owed or entitled to her time and frankly her body even, which is and Chriselle picked up on that, and I'm sure that day after that she was not interested in him anyway, and now he tries to just save face, but frankly just falls flat on it, and it's just sad.
Anya, thoughts?
Yeah, that's some fragile masculinity right
That's
there.
the word.
Like, I remember thinking that, like watching that scene, like, who is this fragile man who doesn't even know this woman, but simply like the visual of her dancing confidently with her friends is enough to threaten his ego, as if he's entitled to her, as if she's an object that he owns or somehow has rights to the territory of. Like, it's just gross. And yeah, and like that's why he pulled her away. Like, he saw her dancing and having a good time. And I remember him like turning to the guys he was with and being like, she's having too much fun, like I'm gonna go get her. Like, he literally like did, like, knew what he was doing and did that on purpose. And it's just like, grow up. Like, how fragile is your ego that you can't like be happy for a person that you're on a date with, like you don't even know this person. And then yeah, the breaking point for me was when he wouldn't move, like, and oh, so gross, he like sat back, like, oh, just nasty, like so nasty.
I lost count how many red flags were in that like couple hour date.
Rochelle was like very, very kind, like unnecessarily kind to him. I would have.
And how she responded to him on social media was also very respectful, considering that he doesn't deserve it. But you know, she frankly just again keeps looking the more sympathetic. I mean, he just gives her more opportunity to look like the better person. So it's just sad for him.
Sad for him.
And frankly, apparently he has a current girlfriend, and he's like, just like with Christine and her husband, you know, like just once you've all like just forget about it. It's we've all moved on. Apparently you haven't. I feel bad for his current girlfriend.
Yeah, that sucks.
I've seen that move done by guys. I'm like, I don't know, I'm like, I've never done that. I'm like, I don't, like, to me that's always been such a like, why would I've never done that. I've seen other guys do that. I'm like, oh, the girls like it. I'm like, do they? I'm like, I guess it depends on the woman, but I guess that just to me seems rude. I'm like,
my cat has some opinions about the show.
So I'm like, I have no more comments or final thoughts. Do you have any final comments or final thoughts on that you want to touch on before we frack off?
I mean, I really liked Emma. We haven't talked about Emma.
Okay, let's talk about Emma.
I was just surprised. Like, I was like, oh no, a new person. Like, you know, Vanessa, I was like, love her. Like, she is, you know, Mexican, like soap opera star. Like, I thought it was great for the company because then they have like a bilingual person who can probably like really help out in that arena. But like, yeah, Emma, I was like, we don't need another white blonde girl. Like, what is happening here? But then she turned out to be like just really cool and really nice. And that again is like what I think surprises me about the show, which of course tells me about my own, you know, biases and like judgment that I have going on in myself. Is I assumed she was going to be like, you know, like maybe a Christine or something, and turns out to just be like a down to earth, like just really nice, like even keeled person. And I'm just like, man, these girls are actually awesome. Like, and last thing I'll say is Amanda gets the award for best dressed. I love everything Amanda wears. She's amazing.
Yeah, I love all the hair too in the show. This is like maybe the longest my hair has ever been. I don't know what to do with it, but they give me so many ideas with like, I didn't know there were so many kinds of braids, and just the volume, and that's just nice to watch. I will add that like, so Vanessa's Hispanic. Emma conversely is not, but she's the one that has like an empanada restaurant, you know, empire apparently.
I love that Vanessa Colorado that she goes like, that's not empanadas. What is it? But I will say that is also that's very cool about Emma that I like about her. I'm like, she doesn't do just this, but she got multiple businesses. I'm like, that's badass. And the fact that she was like investing in stocking in the stock market, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, okay, you're awesome. And then I just love the drama between her and Christine. I'm like, that's just an extra spice to the show. We'll just throw that. That's just all stuff cocktail in there. All right, is that it? Final comments, final thoughts?
I guess okay. The last thing I'll say is Selling Sunset is amazing. And if you like Selling Sunset, I highly recommend you watch Selling Tampa because oh my gosh, it is on a whole nother level and you should definitely watch it.
Masha, I see you. Like, do you agree?
Yeah, I think I'm halfway through. It's only similar in the first word of the title.
That's it.
It's no crossover of characters or anything. I was assuming it'd be like an offshoot, like, oh, we're gonna send one of these girls to like start a, realtor place there or something. No, it's completely separate. And it's definitely actually diverse. It's 100% like diverse, which I love from that perspective of the brokerage. There is all female, all minority women realtors, and the houses are different on the other side of the country, being in Florida, and also I think the drama is different in the sense that they're more mature about. I think they're more respectful of each other, and they call out each other more, but they don't dwell on it for too long, which I think is healthier. And I think they also have been focusing on the houses more. So that's an issue that I had with Selling Sunset season 4, where it wasn't as much of the houses or the real estate process. Like, I guess maybe I would be interested in things like what is escrow and how does falling out of escrow, and I wouldn't mind a couple learning points every season, to kind of keep little nuggets of information, keep us going. But yeah, I definitely recommend Selling Tampa as well.
I will watch it. I smell a future episode coming up.
Yes.
Alrighty, thank you, Anya. Thank you, Masha, for joining me. Thank you for nerding out with me about this. This is so you know what, Frank, I'm gonna do it. Reach out if he wants to do it, because I'm like, why do I love this show so much? It can't be just be me that love this show.
Yes.
I'm like, I am not the demographic for this show, but I love this show. It's just so much fun. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Frack off.
Frack off.
Bye, guys.